Educators at Illinois State University piloted a high-intensity tutoring program during the pandemic.
So it's really based in deep relationship with the students.
The program became a national model. That story coming up on WGLT's Sound Ideas. Good evening, I'm John Norton. Also on today's show, ISU's Interim Athletics Director explores the future of college athletics and her potential role in it.
Continuing to try to support our student athletes in a climate of increasing change in college athletics. It's an amazing time.
And it's a special time for women's college basketball. A Redbird legend reflects on the moment the game is having.
It's fun to watch, and I think people are finally realizing that.
Those stories follow a Bloomington Normal News update. This is Sound Ideas on 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network. From the campus of Illinois State University, this is WGLT's news magazine, Sound Ideas. I'm John Norton. Illinois State University is home to the Illinois Tutoring Initiative. That's a statewide program developed during COVID. It was meant to offset some of the challenges students faced when they had to learn remotely, and the data says it worked. In this interview with WGLT's Lindsay Jones, Executive Director Christy Borders says no other state has adopted exactly this model, and its results have caught the attention of the White House.
The Illinois Tutoring Initiative was born in 2021 in response to the COVID pandemic. Our state's P20 Council gave some recommendations to the state and the legislators in the state about some things that could be done to help address learning disruption during COVID. So they came out with a report that had 13 recommendations, and the state agencies and the governor and all of those folks in Springfield decided on 4 initiatives to move forward, and one of those initiatives was high impact tutoring. And so then the Illinois Tutoring Initiative was born out of that recommendation.
What does high impact tutoring mean?
Yeah, high impact tutoring looks very different than what you envision when you hear the word tutoring. I always think of somebody walking in and maybe doing homework or seeing whoever happens to be in the space at the time. High impact tutoring is often referred to as either high dosage tutoring or relationship-based tutoring. So a student works with the same tutor all semester, if not all year long. So it's really based in deep relationship with the students and addresses not only academic needs, but social emotional needs.
Once the initiative got started, how did you find students to help? How did you find tutors to tutor those students?
Sure, it's been a road for sure. And so once we got up and started, we had several different things that we needed to get moving. We needed to find districts that were eligible and interested in participating. And then we needed to, at the same time, concurrently, find a strong and robust tutor pool across the state. And so that's where kind of this centralized model becomes important. So our central office helped develop with those regional offices what that recruitment material would look like and making sure that we were delivering the same kind of system across the state.
The State Board of Education and a couple other partners, maybe the Board of Higher Ed and the Community College Board, they recently released a report looking at the past couple of years and this initiative. Could you talk a little bit about their findings and what that speaks to?
That was a fun report to get to work with them on. And so the biggest thing that we looked at in that report was kind of what I call the win-win-win of the Illinois Tutoring Initiative. So we looked at what are the wins for students first. And so what we found that's very exciting in just that first full year of full-scale implementation, which was academic year 22 to 23, during that year, we found that over 80% of students that were tutored grew the expected amount or more in reading, and over 90% grew in math. And so that was a very exciting finding that came out related to impact for students. We also looked at the state tests that students take every spring. And we were confirmed that growth indeed did happen. We also looked at impact on districts. And so last year we had 48 districts. This year we have 67 districts that we work with. So we find that the tutors are experiencing positive impact, and they are viewing themselves as more able to change student learning. And then we also look at the win for those communities in which this tutoring occurs.
The White House recently mentioned the Illinois Tutoring Initiative in their own report.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about that one because we didn't solicit that at all. We simply saw it on our Google alert that came up one morning. So the Council for Economic Advisors in Washington, D.C. was looking at different states and what is happening with student growth. And they realized and saw that Illinois looked different, that Illinois was making gains that other states weren't making. And so they looked and said, what is different about Illinois? And what they saw was different was the Illinois Tutoring Initiative, that we are approaching high impact tutoring, like I said, differently from other states, and that we also measure to make sure that the tutoring that's happening is high impact tutoring.
Is the Illinois Tutoring Initiative a COVID era thing with a set end date, or is this something that we can expect to continue on?
We are funded through federal COVID relief dollars, so the American Rescue Plan, if you will. And so we are set to end on September 30th, 2024, with our last tutoring sessions occurring this summer in the summer of 2024. We would love to see this kind of support continue for students in Illinois. We know that federal funding is ending and that was understood as a temporary boost to education systems across the nation. We are in conversations with individuals at the state level to see if Illinois may be interested in continuing this initiative moving forward.
That was Illinois Tutoring Initiative Executive Director Christy Borders speaking with WGLT's Lindsay Jones. Borders says the tutoring effort would need $10 million per year to continue at current scale. The initiative's central office is based at ISU, but it works with other colleges and universities across the state. Some 6,000 students have received 83,000 hours of tutoring since 2021. Tomorrow on Sound Ideas, the town of Normal has reached a tentative $5 million settlement over a wrongful conviction. Where does the death investigation of Jennifer Lockmiller stand 3 decades later, long after Alan Beeman was exonerated? We'll explore that on tomorrow's show.
Even after the worst roughhousing, my younger brother and I always made up at the end of the day.
Your friends are going to come and go. But if your sibling is your friend, they're going to be there forever.
More than 80% of people have a sibling. We'll hear about the importance of these relationships and how they shape us for life. That's tomorrow on Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm co-host Dave Martinez. Join us for Morning Edition weekdays from 4 to 9 a.m. on WGLT.
This is Sound Ideas on WGLT. I'm John Norton. Now that the flap over athletics department spending on donor entertainment is over and trustees have named a permanent ISU president, a number of interim positions need to be filled. One of those is in the athletics department. That became a temporary post following the resignation of Kyle Brennan over nearly $19,000 spent on football tickets and a trip to court, a potential donor. In this interview with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker, interim athletics director Jerry Beggs indicates she might like to stay on.
You know, I've loved the job. I'm having conversations with President Tarhouli about my future here at ISU. My contract ends at the end of June, so some decisions have to be made fairly soon. But I'll just summarize by saying I've really enjoyed the job.
That sounds like you might say yes to an extension.
I have said that I'm interested in continuing to work at ISU. I have also been very clear that I will not be a part of a search. So if the university would decide that they needed to do a search, I'm not going to be a part of a search.
Why that?
A couple of reasons. One is that I only want to do this for a few more years. I had actually turned in retirement paperwork and was looking to retire. And so I don't see myself here 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And so I think when you apply for a job, you really should have some plans for longevity. And that's not what I'm interested in right now. Also, I've had a really good career here at Illinois State, and I just don't want to end it on a sour note. I want to end it on a positive note. So I'm not interested in potentially participating in a search and then not getting the job.
If you were to be extended, what would your goals, or if someone else gets it, what should the goals of the department be over the next 3 years?
Exactly what we've already been doing. We're continuing to try to support our student athletes in a climate of increasing change in college athletics. It's an amazing time for us with NIL and transfer rules and conference realignment. It's a very difficult time to manage college athletics, and I think we're doing a good job here. But it is crazy, the changes that have been made in the last 5 years.
A lot of mid-majors are now experiencing problems recruiting and retaining people because of the transfer portal. Is that ever going to settle down, or how can you adjust to that new climate?
I think it will settle a little bit because of the COVID years. So this coming year is the last year of student athletes who were given that extra year of eligibility because of COVID, and that has kind of bloated the pipeline and increased transfer portal activity. So I think that will settle down. But unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to go back to, or fortunately, some people would say, we're never going to go back to you have to sit out a year and you can only transfer once. I think that's gone. I think we are now living in a time where student athletes have a lot more rights, and that's a good thing, and they'll be able to transfer pretty much whenever they want to.
So a coach's job of creating cohesion and a consistent philosophy of a given team is out the window.
It is. It's a very different time now. The idea that we're going to bring in a freshman and he or she's going to stay for 4 years is just not the reality now. We see so much movement because of the transfer portal, because student athletes are looking for NIL money, because student athletes are looking for visibility that might get them professional opportunities. It's a much more difficult task for our coaches.
How do ISU affiliates who are interested in providing NIL funding or raising money for NIL agreements faring against their peers?
You know, I don't have a good feel for that. A lot of that's not public information. We do have our own collective, Empower the Nest, that is trying to help our student athletes with NIL deals. I'm very proud of that collective because we're actually trying to get opportunities for all of our athletes, male and female. Some of the other schools in the Valley, Missouri Valley Conference, only have them, for example, for men's basketball. So I like that we are doing it for all student athletes, but I really don't know how we're doing compared to other schools.
What has Empower the Nest come back with so far?
I do know we have deals for men and women. We have deals for football. We have deals for men's basketball. We have deals for baseball. So just a variety.
How about volleyball and gymnastics, though?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head. Gymnastics is a very popular one nationwide. Gymnasts are very active on social media. I don't know if any of our gymnasts have a deal. I think we do. I think Caitlin Donovan has a deal with Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
That's Illinois State University Director of Athletics, Jerry Beggs. She spoke with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker.
This is Sound Ideas on WGLT. I'm Eric Stock with Melissa Ellen for the Spring Fund Drive. We're interrupting the stories you tuned in for to remind you that your donation right now supports news and programming from WGLT and the NPR network, including Sound Ideas. It's quick and easy to contribute at WGLT.org.
WGLT delivers trusted news from people you know. You listen to Sound Ideas so you can get the local stories and interviews you don't hear anywhere else from journalists who live and work in Bloomington Normal. Interviews with and about women who have shaped our community, and important health stories that highlight new technology and risk assessments.
The WGLT newsroom is special because we have a local advantage based on the Illinois State University campus. We don't believe in out-of-town wire services or hedge fund investors. We believe in local. Our journalists show up each day to serve you. Help keep the news local with a donation in any amount now at WGLT.org.
Sound Ideas requires journalists to be on the ground in our community each day, getting the facts and nuance behind the headlines, and that requires financial support. More than half of our funding comes from this community. Your gift today of $10 a month helps fund the team of journalists bringing you the information you need each day. Set up your new monthly contribution now at WGLT.org.
NPR and WGLT have it all: news, arts, culture, and music. Each day we share stories that make you think and bring you joy. You hear about arts events like the inaugural Derp Fest and issues that impact your day-to-day life, like the minimum wage bill.
Imagine hearing only half the story, or local stories from strangers who, in fact, live somewhere else. Help keep WGLT fully funded and delivering more local news from people who live where you do with your contribution at WGLT.org.
Thanks for listening to Sound Ideas. This is WGLT's News Magazine. I'm John Norton. You don't have to be Jill Hutchison to understand what the Caitlin Clark craze has done for women's college basketball. There are unprecedented levels of popularity, exposure, and viewership. Tonight's Iowa-LSU rematch featuring Clark and LSU's Angel Reese will be must-see TV. That said, to fully appreciate where the women's game is, it helps to be Hutchison. The former Illinois State University coach was on the ground floor of all of this, helping organize and coaching in the first women's national tournament at Horton Fieldhouse in 1972. In this interview with WGLT correspondent Randy Kindred, Hutchison says she is thrilled to see the sport grow to where it is today.
One, the game has progressed to a better level, and obviously Caitlin Clark is the cream of the crop right now. She's just amazing. And the fact that the public is starting to enjoy the game is phenomenal to me, because I think the women's game is different than the men's. The men's game is more of a power game above the rim. The women's game is more finesse and I think more skill oriented. So it's fun to watch, and I think people are finally realizing that. And you know, Caitlin has brought a ton of attention to the game, but you're absolutely accurate. There are so many other teams that are drawing extremely well and have a good fan base, and people are getting behind them, and there's a lot of young, good talent.
As far as Caitlin Clark as a player, obviously everybody starts with how many points she has accumulated over her career, but her assist totals are pretty amazing, and even rebounding, and it seems like she's got the kind of all-around game that maybe you would hope that young players that are watching would say, hey, it's pretty cool to pass too, instead of just score all the points.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that people have realized what a great assist person she is. You know, she attracts so much attention from the defense that it's always going to leave somebody open, and she's a good passer, and her timing is exquisite. You know, the thing nobody talks about is her defense, and I think they have to save her on defense to be sure they have her on offense. But that team at Iowa and those three seniors are really impressive, and the three of them have been, you know, like the three musketeers of women's basketball this year.
Yeah, and I guess it says a lot maybe for those other two seniors who obviously they've gotten a lot of attention, but it's in most people's minds from the outside, all they want to talk about is Caitlin. So they've done a pretty good job of just being a part of that and being big parts of it without, at least outwardly, showing any jealousy towards all the attention she's getting.
You know, as a coach, I would have been very worried about the locker room and how everything melds together. And you're absolutely right that the seniors have accepted their role. They've got a bond. I think Caitlin Clark does a really nice job of complimenting those people around her and showing the love to the other two seniors especially. But even within the team, how people have handled her stardom has been, and how she's handled it. I mean, I can't imagine what that young lady goes through on a daily basis with the media attention, just walking across campus. I'm sure she's getting all kinds of attention, and to deal with that, play the game, go to school, live a life. I mean, she's got a lot on her plate.
As someone who was at Horton Fieldhouse in 1972, when the first forerunner to the national tournament was the AIAW tournament, and it was a 16-team tournament that
Right.
that was the first one that teams had to qualify to get in, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Did you have even then the sense that this is pretty exciting, that it might lead to something?
Yeah, absolutely. I bet we didn't have 50 people in the stands for the opening ceremonies, and the crowds were atrocious. But just the fact that we finally had a national championship, that it brought everybody in the country together, they had to qualify, that was huge at the time. And I think it's grown from that. To see where the game was then and where we are now 50 years later is just thrilling to me. One, the quality of the play is better, the coaching is better, crowds are better, it's entertaining. It's just exciting to see the growth in the game, and we've got so many good young players. It's going to continue to improve.
When that tournament came about, obviously you were in your second year as ISU's coach, I think,
Yeah.
but in addition to coaching your own team, you were in on helping set up, helping determine how teams qualified and some of the rules and what officials would. And so there was a lot of other stuff that you were involved with that tournament, and the uniforms you're wearing were the same ones that wore for volleyball and softball, right? I mean, it's just that kind of thing is incredible by what you see with Caitlin Clark and everything that's happening today.
I'm grateful that I was able to be around when we started and to have some influence on what happened, but I'm even more excited about where they are and where they're going. And the future's really bright for women's sports, period. And we always felt that basketball should be the flagship because it would attract the attention, and if it was successful, we could bring the other sports along. And I'm not sure we're bringing them. I think volleyball has established themselves, softball has, soccer has, golf, tennis, all of them. But just the fact that girls can compete, they can really follow their passion, they have the chance to be as good as they want to be. I think it's fantastic. I'm excited about it.
That's former ISU basketball coach Jill Hutchison speaking with WGLT correspondent Randy Kindred. The IU-LSU game tips off at 6:15 tonight on ESPN. One final note. Last week on Sound Ideas, we brought you the story of Pastor Tim Allison of Reconcile Church in Bloomington. He was looking to break his national bench press record, and we're happy to report that Pastor Tim crushed his 501-pound record, setting the new bar at 507 pounds. And he made it home in time to give his Easter sermon on Sunday morning. And that is Sound Ideas today. WGLT's news magazine is made possible in part by Bloomington Normal Audiology. I'm John Norton with story help from WGLT's Lindsey Jones, Eric Stock, and correspondent Randy Kindred. Ryan Toohey edits Sound Ideas. This is 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.